Hello my fellow gamers, it's your boy again Mike, back to give you another Call of Duty mobile video, and today I will have the Gunsmith stats explained. I was super hyped up for this. I even went as far as ignoring my mates just to test things out. As a quick disclaimer though, I haven't maxed any of the weapons yet, or just one of them, so I won't be able to showcase every single attachment. I probably need to do some more grinding. So without any further ado, let's move on to the video. This will be sort of an in-depth info on how stats work in Gunsmith. Some of these stats are really common and you might be familiar with them already. There are also a couple of new ones which made a huge impact on how we use guns and how it affected our overall gameplay. So starting off with the ones we already know and use from the previous seasons. The ADS speed. It is the amount of time in which you go from hipfire to viewing your iron sights, red dot sights, hollow sights, or tactical scope, and actually aiming into an enemy. Previously, this was only affected by the type of sights or optics you are using, but ever since Gunsmith came out, a number of different optics and attachments can affect it as well. Next is the ADS movement speed. It is the speed of travel you are capable of while viewing your iron sights or optics. It was only affected before by equipping a stock or the operator perk Skulker if you are crouching while moving, but now it can also be affected by a couple of attachments, from the underbarrel grip you are using to the ammunition or magazine attachment you have equipped. After that, we also have the damage range. It is the amount of damage your bullets make at a certain distance on a specific body part depending on its damage multiplier. Even with the current update though, it is still affected by the type of barrel or the type of muzzle you have equipped. Okay, so next up is flinch stability. It is the amount of movement your aim makes when you are being hit by an enemy fire. Before the current season, there was no attachment to counteract this. It was only possible by equipping the operator perk toughness. So these next few ones are really common and mostly available on the previous seasons, so I'll just briefly explain them. And one of them is the hipfire accuracy. It is the amount of bullet spread your gun makes when hip firing, so it's within the crosshair that you see without using the ADS. Next, we have the magazine capacity. It is the amount of bullets in a clip or magazine. And also, last but not least, reload speed. It is the amount of time it takes for you to change your magazine or clip to a fresh one. This one was only affected by equipping the fast mag on the previous seasons, but now there's also a perk that you can use to reduce your reload time, and it's called sleight of hand. Okay, so now that we got the common ones out of the way, let's move on to the new stats that we were introduced to this season. I will not go too in-depth with these stats since the majority of them are pretty straightforward, but I will explain each one of them to the best of my ability nonetheless. So, first up we have ADS bullet spread accuracy. This one was unavailable previously, but after messing around with a couple of guns and firing off a few hundred rounds, I finally figured out what it is and how it works. So you are aware of recoil, right? Recoil patterns your gun makes, it is essentially the same thing. But instead of your gun moving violently on its movement pattern, it's a bit lessened, but instead your red dot or the optics you use move as well, so it kinda jiggles around. The more it moves around, the less accurate your shots become, so I prefer reducing the spread it makes as much as possible. They're trying to make the game as realistic as possible and I can respect that, so adding this stat is a no-brainer for them. But to further explain, if you are to fire off a real weapon, the amount of kickback or impact it makes on your body causes your aim to jiggle, so the alignment of your sights from like point A to point B gets misaligned, which causes the actual point you are aiming at to jiggle around what you're actually seeing. Due to my playstyle, I usually go full accuracy and go to balance some of the other detrimental stats, but you can pick or choose or prioritize this or not. So for number 2, we have Hidden Muzzle Flash or just Muzzle Flash. Now, I know what you're thinking, but please hear me out first. It wasn't a very fleshed out stat or perk previously, so it was only improved by equipping a silencer on your gun, but now there are a couple of muzzle attachments you can use to reduce the flash or completely remove it. And to explain it more detail, muzzle flash is the amount of light the tip of your gun makes as soon as the bullet exits the chamber. In game, it's basically what reveals your exact position to the enemy as soon as you fire off a shot. So for number 3, we have vertical and lateral recoil control or stability. This is pretty straightforward, that's why I put it on one category since they're basically just recoil. So it's basically how your aim moves from an up and down, left and right motion when you're firing your weapon. The reason I didn't include this on the common ones from the previous seasons is because there was no way of isolating the vertical and horizontal movements and just reduce one or the other or both. Now though, there are a few underbarrel grips that you can use to affect both or just one of these stats, as well as using certain muzzle attachments, barrels, and grip tapes to cancel or reduce the amount of vertical and horizontal recoil that your gun has. So for number 4, we have sprint to fire speed. This is also one of those stats that are present on the previous seasons, but there was no other way of affecting it, not unless you equip the operator perk Agile, which increases your object mounting speed. To elaborate, sprint to fire speed is the amount of time in which your character moves the weapon from a sprinting or running stance to a hip fire stance and actually firing the weapon. There are a couple of new attachment types that you can use to affect these stats in a positive or negative way, which is great. And by the way, this is mostly suited for run and gun tactics or playstyles which use SMGs, ARs, and shotguns, which primarily uses this stats majority of the times. And finally, for number 5, visible laser sights. So previously this wasn't something we even considered since laser sights only reduced the hipfire spread and that's basically all it did. But currently, if you use a certain laser sight, there's a good chance you will reveal your position to an enemy player, so you need to think carefully if you want to use this attachment or not. Laser sights can now reduce your hipfire spread by a good amount, which makes hip firing a viable option in close range gunfights. Hip firing doesn't reduce your movement speed, so having a laser sight attachment is good if you want to go crazy and use a shotgun or an SMG to dance around your opponents. By the way, if you guys are wondering why some of the stats and gun perks are not included on this video, it is because I haven't gotten them yet. My DRH isn't at max level yet, so once I get back to grinding, max out my DRH, I'll make another video with the silenced and silenced fire, as well as the gun perks and how they work exactly. Also, before we end this video, I just want to give you guys my opinions on gun builds. So I believe there's no specific way of making guns OP. What makes them OP is by tailoring them to your playstyle, building or using certain attachments to complement you and the weapon that you are using. So if you guys are looking for like builds that will suit you, you kind of have to look for the type of playstyle that you are using most of the time and then build your weapon. Thank you guys for getting this far into the video. If you liked it, I really appreciate it if you can click on that like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot. Click on the bell icon to turn on notification so that you won't miss my next video. Also, it is currently my goal to reach 100 subs in my channel. I know it's baby steps, but for now, it's going to be my goal, and it will really help out a lot if you can share my videos to your friends. I would really appreciate it. Also, don't be shy to leave a comment down below. I read every single one of them. Thank you guys for watching. Stay frosty.